So, when Buried Tomorrow were becoming a really big thing, it was like, so I'm thinking album 2 was when people really started to notice, in my opinion, which was Union of Crowns. Metalcore was in such a weird state. You had While She Sleeps released their debut, which was This Is the Six, which was fantastic. Architects were back from the follow up of The Here and Now, which was Daybreaker, which was fantastic. And you had Brotherhood of the Lake, a new up and coming band again with this very dark, decrepit version of hardcore, with Desperation is the English Way, Volume 1, also very, very good. That was sort of like bringing in a revival for metalcore after years of people saying that's not metal, or it's not good, or it's this, that, or the other. Basically, it's all fringes, which I will make fun of a lot. But these sort of bands were bringing the revival. At the same time, there were bands who were still leaving it quite stagnant and boring. You had Amity Affliction with Chasing Ghosts, and Axe Wound as well with Vultures, and a plethora of other bands who were just very much, this is metalcore, we're going to do that, and that's about it. It was just very... Because I think it was around this time, Attack Attack, that's the same before, released... so This Is Now? I've forgotten what it's called already. This Means War. Don't know where I got that from. Yeah, that was released in 2012 as now. So same year as Union of Crowns, we had This Means War. A very good album, but again, you're like, an okay album. Has got a bit ahead of myself there. A very okay album, but it just... Metalcore all the time, like I said. You had the one side of Revival, this one where it's this side of it, which is very long, straight line. And the bands that were doing something different were very... They were received in very mixed degrees. So you had Eskimo Callboy with Bury Me in Vegas, which got shat on because it's just very uber synthy metalcore. At the same time, you had Issues with their Black Diamonds EP, also doing very uber synthy metalcore, but made it look so cool, bringing that R&B flair to it and kind of bringing in this newer age that we've seen more a couple of years, well, more recent years, sorry, of this new metalcore. And at the same time, you had, well, around this time, sorry, you had Daggers by Defiled, which remains one of my favourite albums of all time. Why did they split up? So yeah, Union of Crowns, I feel like, sat somewhere in the middle of all this. It was part of the British-led revival of very good, very hooky metalcore. It still stayed with the verse, chorus, structure of like the stagnancy, and then when it's something different, the clean vocalist, Jason Cameron, had just, for me, just that little bit. He had like a gritty clean that could have absolutely, it obviously belongs in metalcore, but at the same time it could have easily belonged in pop, which I'll talk about more in a bit. And over the years, they just got like Buried Tomorrow just got better and better. Runes, everyone's thought was like a one-up from Union of Crowns. I wasn't into it that much, so that meant I ended up just glossing over the next album, which was Earthbound. Earthbound, everyone says, is so far like Buried Tomorrow's peak. That's the part where they could be held in the same regard as your bands like While She Sleeps and Architect. Well, maybe not Architect, but shoulder to shoulder with UK metalcore brethren. That was the album that people thought, yes, you belong here. And so for this album, it's a follow-up from Earthbound. Like I said, I don't know if I'm in a good position or a bad position to be able to compare it to Earthbound based on the fact I haven't heard it. I've basically just got to go on how a modern day Buried Tomorrow, their first album on is it Music for Nations? Nation of Music, Music of Nations? The new label, essentially, after leaving I think it was Napalm. Or no, Nuclear Blast, I think. And this, it takes a few listens to get on board. I've had this sat in my phone and my to listen list for about 2 months, 3 months, because when you listen to it isolated, after, like when you're shuffling through, you hear a very initially what you think is a very basic metalcore song. You think, oh, just get around to it. Sitting down and listening to this album is a completely different experience. There's so much more melodic death metal in this, which is what I've always thought there's always two kinds of metalcore. You've got the metallic hardcore, so you converge, you while you sleep, that kind of thing, or you've got the newer, like American influence metalcore, which is hardcore. You've got like verse, chorus, like the roughs and then the cleans, but it's very Swedish death metal influence. This has got no less violent, sorry, which is the opener, I think. It's the song that everyone's been asking In Flames to write for nearly 10 years, since Sounds of a Playground Fading. The album just, that song just absolutely smashes. The guitar work on it, which I'll go into a little bit more in a bit, is fucking phenomenal. Knife of Gold that starts with blast beats and a really, really like sickening scream from Daniel Winter Bates. And then finally, Stormbringer is a full-on thrash melodic onslaught. It's up in the extremity of the album, well, like of their back catalogue, so much. And like I was saying, the riffs in this album, like there's one, I think the main riff in the verses for Peacekeeper easily could live on Holy Hell, which I think for a metalcore band is like the peak at the moment, because Architects are definitely up there. And I think, well, the vocals on this album, they contrast each other, which is what a good metalcore, this kind of metalcore album should do, but they are not abrasive and they don't clash at all. Or they clash in a negative way, I should say. You've got, like I said, Daniel Winter Bates, he's the harsh vocalist. I feel like with this album he's got a lot more natural range. He can go to growls and screams quite fluidly. Reminds me of, again, I'm going to bring it back to Asking Alexandria, reminds me of Danny Warsnop, around that sort of era where you could bounce between two very well. And then you've got Jason Cameron, who does the cleans. Still, I honestly think he could, I was trying to think who I would love him in the world of like mainstream and pop, that sort of thing, who I'd love him to do collaboration with, and I honestly think he could sit shoulder to shoulder with Hoosier. I was listening to it just before recording, just trying to like, obviously make notes down. That's why, like I said, it was a bit delayed. And initially I thought I preferred Beartooth, and now I just don't know. Overcast, which I think is the album ender. No, it's not. It's the second to last. And the chorus on there is huge. It is so good. And he just sounds so emotive as he sings. And it's just, I'm down for it. It's a weird thing. I'm down for this. I honestly think that they've got the production and the mixing, particularly the mixing of this album, so on point. Particularly with so the lead single, the title track, Black Flame, the chorus on that, you've got Jason obviously singing his part. You've got Daniel underneath with growls, and that works really well together. And then Jason will stop, and then they'll mix up Daniel again, so he'll do the Black Flame. And then it goes back to the other way around. They know who needs to be the center point of every part of a song. And like I said, I was trying to figure out, initially I preferred Beartooth, because I've always preferred much more punk rock kind of things. But now, listen to it again, I cannot pick between the two, because they are so good, but in totally different ways. I was trying to think, if you're a fan of Killswitch Engage, Parkway Drive, or I'd even say Miss May, because Miss May I have been getting progressively better over the last few albums. If you're a fan of any of those guys, do check out Black Flame. If you just like British fueled metalcore and like the Swedish melodeath scene, and if you're like me, who's a bit cynical about that kind of metalcore, because I know I'll keep bringing it back to Union Crowns. As good as that was, it did have moments where it was like, this is very black and white, and that's kind of what I felt about Runes. Like I said, I missed Earthbound. If you're a fan of that, or if you've always been quite cynical about that kind of metalcore, I get it, but I think this album, it won't come immediately. Like I said, it took me 3 months to start actually listening to it. I think I've been listening to it on and off for about 2 weeks, and it's only about an hour ago where it clicked and went, oh shit, this is this. I'd highly recommend it. Bury Tomorrow, Black Flame.